To be poor in medieval Europe did not mean having less. It meant living on the edge of survival every single day. Poverty was not a temporary situation. It was not something people escaped with effort or luck. For most, it was a condition inherited at birth and carried until death. If you were born poor, you would almost certainly die poor. In medieval Europe, society was rigid. Your place was decided early, often before you could walk. A peasant's child became a peasant. A servant's child became a servant. Opportunity did not exist as an idea. To be poor meant having no land of your own, and without land, you had no independence. Most poor families lived on land owned by a lord. They worked fields they would never own. They built homes they could be forced to leave. They paid rent not in money, but in labour, crops, obedience. A poor person's day began before sunrise, not because of ambition, but necessity. Every hour of daylight mattered. Every wasted moment meant less food, less warmth, less safety. Homes were small, dark, and overcrowded. Often a single room held an entire family. There was no privacy, no separation between living, eating, and sleeping. The floor was dirt, the walls were wood, mud, or rough stone. Smoke filled the air because fires burned constantly. Not for comfort, but survival. Clothing was minimal, usually one set per person. Wool in winter, rough and itchy. Linen if the family was fortunate. Repairs were endless. Clothes were patched until there was almost nothing original left. Shoes were a luxury. Many walked barefoot, even in winter. Cold was not an inconvenience. It was a threat. Food defined poverty more than anything else. The poor ate to survive, not to enjoy. Bread was the foundation of life. Dark bread, heavy and coarse, made from rye, barley, or oats, sometimes mixed with husks, straw, or ground peas to make it last longer. Meat was rare. Most poor families ate it only a few times a year, if at all. Animals were valuable alive, not dead. Milk, eggs, labour mattered more than flesh. Vegetables filled the gaps. Cabbage, turnips, onions, leeks, stored through winter if possible, often rotting before spring arrived. Hunger was constant. Not always extreme, but always present. A quiet companion that never left. Children grew up knowing hunger intimately. They learned early that food was limited. Portions were small, sometimes skipped entirely. Parents made impossible choices. Who eats today? Who waits? Being poor also meant vulnerability to illness. Medical care was almost non-existent. Doctors were expensive and rare. Most relied on folk remedies, prayers, or nothing at all. A small cut could become infected. A fever could sweep through a household. Malnutrition weakened bodies long before sickness arrived. Many poor children did not survive infancy. Many adults did not reach old age. Death was common, familiar, expected. Religion shaped how poverty was understood. The poor were told their suffering had meaning, that humility was virtuous, that obedience would be rewarded in the afterlife. Heaven was promised to those who endured quietly. Hell awaited those who rebelled. This belief kept society stable, and the poor in their place. Work never stopped. Men laboured in fields, forests, workshops. Women worked just as hard, cooking, cleaning, spinning, caring for children, tending animals, often while pregnant, often while exhausted. Children worked as soon as they could be useful, carrying water, scaring birds from crops, gathering firewood, serving as apprentices or servants. There was no childhood as we understand it, in only preparation for labour. To be poor meant having no protection. If harvests failed, there was no savings. If winter was long, there was no backup. If war passed through, the poor suffered first. Armies took food, burned villages, left nothing behind. The poor could not flee. They had nowhere to go. Justice was not equal. Laws favoured landowners and nobles. Punishments for the poor were harsher. Fines impossible to pay. Crimes born of desperation punished without mercy. Stealing food could mean mutilation or death. Begging was common, but dangerous. It marked you as weak, as expendable. Charity existed, but it was limited. Monasteries helped when they could, but need always exceeded supply. Urban poverty brought different hardships. In towns, the poor lived in cramped alleys, surrounded by waste, noise, disease. Work was unstable, wages unpredictable. When work disappeared, hunger followed immediately. Prices rose quickly in times of scarcity. Bread riots erupted when people could no longer eat. Desperation turned into violence. Yet even in poverty, community mattered. Neighbours relied on each other. Shared labour, shared tools, shared food when possible. Survival depended on cooperation. The poor did not dream of wealth. They dreamed of stability, of enough food to last the winter, of children surviving, of one more year. Old age was rare among the poor. Those who reached it were respected but burdensome, unable to work, dependent on others. There was no retirement, no safety net. When strength failed, life ended soon after. To be poor in medieval Europe was to live without margin. No buffer between life and disaster. No distance between effort and exhaustion. Every day required work, every night brought uncertainty. And yet, people endured, they married, they laughed, they told stories by firelight, they prayed, they hoped, not for change, but for survival. When we look back from the modern world, it is easy to romanticize the Middle Ages, stone castles, chivalry, faith. But for the poor, life was not romantic, it was fragile. Poverty was not failure, it was the default. And for most people in medieval Europe, it was the only life they ever knew.